All right, thank you so much for joining tonight. We are very, very excited to be getting this webinar started in partnership with Health Professions Week. We are the Tour for Diversity in Medicine, and we have been a very excited partner with HPW for some years now. And so thank you for jumping on tonight. Thank you for actually prioritizing this topic by just showing up, because becoming a healthcare professional. My name is Dr. Cameron Matthews. I am one of the founders of the Tour for Diversity in Medicine, and Demetria.
Uding, sorry, you broke up for a little bit of time.
Oh,
So
did I? Oh,
yeah, it went.
Go ahead.
I'm Dr. Demetria Gibson. I have been a member of Tour for Diversity since it started in 2012. I am a internal medicine doctor. I work at the Cleveland Clinic in hospital medicine and medical operations. I'm glad you all are here today.
Perfect. Dr. Owens. You're on mute.
I tell you what, that mute button is the devil, isn't it? But my name is Dr. Kitra Owens. Good evening, everyone. I have been with the Tour for Diversity Medicine. I think now it's been over 10 years, which is so amazing.
Yep.
I am by profession a podiatric surgeon. I specialize in reconstructive foot and ankle surgery. Currently, I am the chief of staff of the Central Alabama VA healthcare system. As chief of staff, I have the responsibility of being the lead physician of 2 medical centers and 9 community-based outpatient clinics. So I'm very, very pleased to be here with you all this evening, and I look forward to a great presentation. So thank you.
Perfect. And Stephanie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie Aroworade. I'm a 4th year podiatric medical student. Actually finding out on Friday about match, so looking forward to that. But I've been with Tour for Diversity about 2 years now, and I love it. I'm excited to talk about this topic as well. I feel it is very important. I was a psychology major at undergrad, so I understand the effects of mental health. So thank you for being here.
Love it. Love it. Thank you, guys. All right. So just jumping in, if you will allow me, and now my screen is not sharing. All right, guys, hold on one second. Let me figure this out. There we go. Can you guys see it? Okay. I don't know what's going on. All right. We are an organization that has been around since 2012. I cannot believe it's been that long. Thank goodness for these 3 beautiful women that have been on this journey with us. But the Tour for Diversity in Medicine is a nonprofit organization, and our mission is really to get you where you want to be, to help you along your path. We're a group of physicians, podiatrists, dentists, pharmacists, students, pre-meds advisors. We got allopathic physicians, osteopathic physicians, so that you guys understand what your options are, and hopefully motivate you along this marathon that it is to get into the healthcare profession. We, of course, however, do recognize that we need the full care team around us to make sure that our patients are taken care of. So in no way are we saying that other healthcare professionals aren't as equally as important to all that we do. We're just sharing our experiences tonight and throughout our programming. And so definitely appreciate Health Professions Week for that broader interprofessional exposure that you're all getting, and that you'll hopefully continue to get through their programs both this week and throughout the year. But definitely follow us on all of the social media. As you see here, we have a great deal of videos I'll highlight on YouTube with some of the ladies here. We really want to share our stories like we're going to actually do tonight. All right. So first audience check. I know there's a small group of you, so we're going to have fun tonight. We're going to be a little bit interactive. I would love for you to drop into the chat what year you were born. I want to get an idea of who's here with us tonight. There we go, 70s. I was hoping there was some 70s babies. That's what I'm talking about. All right, so I see some 2000s. All right, Mandy, you are not old. And for the audience, if you guys want to flip it to make sure you're, well, if you want everyone to see, make sure you flip your chat to everyone as opposed to hosts and panelists, because right now we're the only ones seeing it. But I see some 70 babies and I see some 2000 babies. I love that. All right, so we've got some range here. What state are you located in? I'd love to know geographically who we're reaching. And there we go. Washington State. Kristen, are you Washington State or Washington, D.C.? I love it. Yeah, Mandy is in Washington too. That's right. That's right. All right. We got North Carolina. We got Maryland. Appreciate it, guys. Yes, Kristen, Washington State. Okay. We got some West Coasters. All right. It's like 2 p.m. over there. No, I'm being silly. All right. And Minnesota. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you guys for joining tonight and for giving that impact. That gives us a little bit of understanding of who's with us tonight. All right. So let's get into the real topic at hand. However, I'd love to hear from you. You can do it in phrases, sentences, however you want. How do you define wellness? I mean, when you saw this topic tonight, prioritizing wellness, what did you reflect on, and how do you define it when you really think about it? Take a minute or so, but drop it in the chat. And please, again, if you're open, share it with everyone. Click that everyone drop down because we want to eventually turn this into a conversation. I can hear them typing. No. All right, guys. We'll keep the conversation going, but please share your thoughts. We think it's pretty important that we actually root the conversation in your beliefs and your understandings and the like. So we'd love for you to share when you get a chance. And I don't know if it's my internet access that's been messing up all day, so maybe nothing's coming through. So if y'all see something before I do, please speak up. Thank you, Mandy. I completely agree, and we are definitely going to touch on this. Wellness is both mental and physical. It is about a lack of illness. It is, there we go. There's a understanding of the opposite of what our like medical system, our healthcare system even focuses on, but we don't have that. That's me getting into holistic medicine. We can talk about that later. Katie, thank you. Mental and physical stability. I like that concept. Stability. All right, guys. Thank you for those. Thanks for giving that input. Oh, okay, here we go. I love it. We're getting there. It took some time to type. Wellness is a state of good health in all aspects, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Thank you. Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for that. All right, Demetra, why don't you take it?
Thank you so much, Cam. So what is wellness? Thank you. It's really, you guys really hit the nail on the head of what you think about when you think about wellness. So wellness is linked very closely with health. So when we look at the WHO definition of health, a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Oftentimes we think about the disease and we think about health, but just as somebody mentioned in the chat, it's really the physical, mental, social, emotional, spiritual, all of that well-being is what defines health. So how do we get to that state of health or wellness? It's really the act of practicing healthy habits on a daily basis to attain better physical and mental health outcomes. So what can you intentionally do and practice on a daily basis so that you're not just surviving the goal, but you're thriving? That's our goal. It's to thrive, not just survive. Can we hit the next slide, please? So when we think about wellness, I know you all touched on some of this, but what are some of the components? So social connectedness, what are the ways that we connect with the people around us, families, friends, colleagues, those sort of things, our relationships, exercise, nutrition, sleep. These are critical elements of good health. mindfulness, actually reflecting and practicing mindfulness, your financial health, your environmental health, where are you living, what are you exposed to, stress reduction, boundary setting, how do we reduce stress in our life and be able to say no to things and set boundaries, and our spirituality, whatever that might mean to you. So those are some of the components that we think about that contribute to an overall state of wellness, and we're going to delve a little bit deeper into a couple of them today. Next slide, please. So wellness, why does wellness matter for healthcare professionals in particular? So outside of a lot of the things that we just talked about, in healthcare in particular, there's certain stressors that healthcare professionals may experience. So some of these may be resource limitations. Whether it be, in the hospital, sometimes you have shortages of certain medications, or you're short of supplies. And I don't know if you remember during the pandemic, there was limitation and even personal protective equipment to even care for your patients and while you're protecting yourself, which leads me to the next one, personal risk. Sometimes doctors actually putting themselves on the line to take care of patients like we did during the COVID pandemic. Short staffing, where there are not enough doctors and other healthcare professionals coming out of into the workforce is what the population needs. Inadequate time with patients. There's time crunches to see more patients, the electronic health records, and how much you have to document and code and bill, and more administrative requirements, limited support staff debt, the amount of debt people leave school with. So all of these can contribute to a lot of stress in the workplace, which leads to what we call burnout. Have any of you guys heard of burnout before? If you have, you can take a minute to reflect on what it means to you and maybe drop a comment in the chat. So there've actually been a lot of studies in the last few years about wellness and what it means to the healthcare professionals and what it means to the workforce. And so some of the impact of burnout and lack of wellness really they've shows loss of empathy when you're dealing with other people, lower quality of care, decreased patient satisfaction, increased medical errors. So you can see these are going to have an impact on not just you, but the patients that you see and the lives that you touch and the healthcare system that you work in. Decreased productivity, an increase in substance abuse and mental health as the burnout increases. High turnover in the workforce. Some professions are actually some people are actually leaving healthcare professions completely, and overall a financial loss, not just to the individual, but to systems as well. So I'm going to pass it back over to Dr. Matthews to talk a little bit, to Dr. Owens to talk a little bit about balance. So with understanding a lot of that, what are some of the issues that impact wellness and the outcome of it? How can we try and achieve that balance?
And Dr. Gibson, thank you for bringing up those points, because it transitions right into what we sit back and we often reflect, and especially those of us who are in the medical profession, we start at some point in our career evaluating, right? We start looking at, do we make the right choice? Okay, we're working a lot. How does that look if we didn't choose this field? At some point in your life, you're going to ask yourself those questions. And a lot of times it's when those stressors come into play. But instead of asking yourself those questions and looking at it, almost in hindsight, in that rear view of the mirror look, I think this is the appropriate time when those who feel the imbalance in life, that they start to ask, what role does work actually play in my life? Right? I often use the phrase when I'm talking to people, I joke about it now, but I say, I'm 1/3 at work of who I really am. And people look at me and they say, what do you mean by that? I was like, there's so many components in me, right? But you all know about 1/3 of who I really am. I'm in a role at work, but there's so much more to me. And I think everyone actually has to define that for themselves. When you are looking at yourself, your career, where you want to take this, and especially in medicine, it's lifelong learning. What role do you want work to play in your life? For some people, they're all in, and it's all about work, and success is directly proportional to work. But for others, they're looking, and sometimes they even select the specialty professions that they go into, or they even they may choose to become a radiologist because they're not really interacting with people all day, and it's less attitudes or personalities. They're sitting in a room, or they may select something else that thrives, and they have to be more intimate with people. So I think we choose our roles and our work for certain reasons. But I want to jump into a question next, and this is really what it's about. And the question, and I'd love to see you all's answers in the chat. So what we're going to do in this moment, we're going to take a look at the question: can balance truly exist in one's personal and professional life? What do you all think? Put some things in the chat. I'm on a little iPad today, so I'm going to try to see if I can monitor your comments in the chat. But for the most part, I'm curious to see if you really feel like we can achieve balance in our professional and personal lives. Okay, Mandy, I'm trying to see what you say. Let's see what you say. You said balance only happens when you have good boundaries. Mandy, something tells me you've seen my presentation. That's okay if you haven't, because we're going to get into that. Anybody else? What do you think? Can we truly balance our personal and professional lives? All right, well, I want you to think on that. The next, uh-oh.
No, I was going to say, I'd love to talk about how it comes voices, right? That you may not be able to balance everything. So there's choices that need to be made in order for the balance to occur.
I agree with that. Kim, let me ask you this question, or Dr. Matthews, let me ask you this question. When you make those choices, is there guilt that comes with you making the choice, knowing that there could be consequences for the choice?
Yes.
Okay.
I personally feel it at times, some decisions more than others. Yes. But there's that, oh, I could be doing more at work, or I should be doing more with my family decision. Yes. The guilt. Yes.
Mm-hmm. I asked that question. I appreciate you being transparent, because I think that's an important way we continue to go on this conversation, because most of us, we talk about work-life balance, but when we really take those days off from work, some of us feel terribly guilty about it, because we think about the number of emails that we're going to go back to trying to delve through. We think about what the alerts and encounters and the notes and all that looks like. So, even though, and we try to balance this throughout our career. So I want to be transparent with you all. It's a constant maneuvering, because even when we really try to live up to that work-life balance, being human, we innately feel guilty about taking the time away. Okay. And so I say that to you all because it's not a bad thing. We just have to manage the guilt as we're trying to manage the work-life balance. Let's talk about this. What are habits that yield balance? Throw them out there if you can think of them. As we're trying to say, okay, it's important to keep that sense of understanding of what's important in life, what really can we put into place to make sure we do that? Any ideas? Throw them out there. And again, this is meant to be a wellness conversation. So it doesn't have to be a perfect answer. It may be what you're experiencing. Strong organizational skills. I would agree with that. Absolutely. Anything else? All right, Dr. Matthews, you can go to the next slide, because what we're going to do is we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this. Okay. I truly believe that balance can exist when work and life intersect. I saw this model a while ago. It's sort of taken on new measure and kind of new this new diagram of what we look at these intersecting components, right? We look at home and family, but we don't want to forget our friends, because they can be an essential part of our extended family. We want to look at health and wellness. We want to look at our career. And then if you're involved in your community, I do a lot of community service. Many of us here, we're an extension of our jobs, because we We mentor, we have organizations outside, even more than the Tool for Diversity in Medicine that we work with. So our connection to our community is key. But before, I used to look at, all right, I'm going to leave work. But when I leave work, I'm going to turn it off and I'm going to go home and I'm going to enjoy my family. And then I get home again and that guilt would kick in. Oh my gosh, I got notes to do. Patients are waiting on orders and medications, or I got 75 emails to take a look at. The guilt component would kick in. But I want to say today that there can be that overlapping sort of moment that we learn to regulate. And if you look at this diagram, that's exactly what the circles do. They overlap on various components in our lives. And if you form healthy habits now, then that balance and that overlap can intersect without you having that burnout. And so if we really take a look at some of those habits, what does that mean? When you're starting to know, or you're starting to feel that life is having its major play in what you're doing professionally and personally, meaning that you're asking yourself those questions. Is it worth it? Am I doing the right thing? Did I pick the right career? The first thing that you should do is just pause, reflect, take a deep breath, and remember why you did it. Okay. The second thing that I would say is evaluate your priorities. Start looking at the things that you have to do, the things that you need to do, and the things that you enjoy doing, right? And make sure there's some balance in all three of those. Time management is key. We just saw someone drop in the chat, organization, time management. They tend to go hand in hand. If you're structured, you can achieve this a little bit better than someone who has difficulty prioritizing. But I want to also now get into one of those things that we have a tough time. We have a tough time sometimes negotiating. And I'm only speaking to from personal experience. I promise transparency this evening. But many of us who want to make sure that our best is reflected, right? Whether that's in your personal work, whether that's in group work, we sometimes have difficulty delegating tasks because we want to make sure that our best is given. And so sometimes you don't know if you delegate that task if somebody else is going to give their best with the same thing. So, but we have to learn to leverage our resources. We also have to learn when we can do things and when we can't do things, right? There's power in actually saying no. That's actually another way to create boundaries. When you learn your bandwidth and when you learn what you can reasonably do in a 24-hour period, you will learn to say no because you have to preserve mental space. You have to be able to unpack your day to be able to pick it up and start again tomorrow. You also have to know how to ask for help. That was a tough one for me because asking for help is a vulnerable moment. Asking for help doesn't mean that you're necessarily weak, right? So sometimes we got to get out of our own way, thinking that these things are associated with negative connotations. Asking for help simply means that you're very smart in leveraging your resources. You know when you have met your capacity. And that yields the final thing. In order for us to truly be able to have work and life intersect and not have too many disturbances, we have to first make sure we're prioritizing our own mental health and well-being. And in the medicine career, as well as other professions, we oftentimes put others before ourselves. That's just the role that we have learned to play. We haven't learned to do it. We do it because we care, and we do it because we want those that we serve to be well, both physically, mentally, emotionally. So we sacrifice self at the detriment of that, of putting others first. I want you all to remember this last part. The busier you are, kind of like as you're climbing your pathway in life, whether that was, think about how you look from high school and then now college, and from college to professional school and professional school, wherever you're going next, or residency. The higher you go, the busier you are, the more intentional you actually have to be about setting these habits to yield balance. And I want you all to remember that. Be intentional in blocking that space for yourself. Dr. Matthews, I'll turn it back over to you.
Katja, I absolutely love and feel like my life has exhibited that last point, that as I've gotten busier, I've had to be more intentional. I've had to be intentional within my time management, within those concentric circles of being with my friends. Like that's the one thing, like it was so much easier when we were younger, right? To see our friends. And now I realize I need to put more value into those relationships. And that's part of my balance because I am personally enriched by those relationships. So let's go over a couple of deep areas where I think intentionality is critical. And one of those is one that I'm just going to share outright, has been my personal like quest, I'll call it as, and it's around my sleep. Why be intentional about sleep? We're scientists. Let's get into the data and everything. But if you have sleep delays, interruptions, lack of volume, there are multiple impacts on your health, on your ability to serve your patients, on your ability to interact with your family, your friends, your colleagues. It actually leads to chronic disease. There is a significant impact, and we have to be intentional about this. In fact, sleep is usually, I know as students, but definitely as professionals as well too, sleep is the one thing that we completely deprioritize, that we completely let go. We say, well, we're just going to stay up, or we're just going to get up earlier. But if you don't have that, if you don't find that balance to get those hours in, you are going to suffer. So I personally think that part of my well-being, and I've been talking with my therapist about this, we'll talk about therapy, but we definitively are really working on what my sleep habits are, being very intentional about that. And what does that look like? These are a number of recommendations. This is actually from the CDC, so it comes with a lot of evidence behind it, but there's also a great amount of conversation going on almost on opposite ideas. So don't take any of this as law, but at this point, it's really about finding where you need to be intentional. So for me, yes, they recommend removing electronic devices from the bedroom. I have to sleep with now a podcast. It used to be TV, but now I have to sleep with a podcast. So my smartphone has to be next to me, but I found earbuds that are flat, that are part of a headband. That sound concept. And so I removing electronic devices wouldn't work for me. I definitely sleep better when I work out more frequently. I have missed my workouts and my sleep suffers. And so there's a lot that you can do, that you can be purposeful about. You can monitor the temperature in your room. You can think about, I had to figure out what blanket, I swear I have a blankie. I am not a child, but I swear I have a blankie, and I'm very purposeful. I take that blanket to my parents' house so I can sleep well at my parents' house. Like everyone around me knows I am focused on my sleep. And that is honestly my source of well-being. It really has made a major difference. So please take these for what they are. Think about other options, read up, talk to experts online usually, but be intentional about how you are structuring your sleep, and do not deprioritize it. It has major impact. The next area that I am personally really trying to take some intention around as well is around social connection. There's some great evidence that's really showing, and we've got some graphs here. I'll try to interpret them in kind of layperson terms, that basically at the bottom there, let's start at the bottom, that we have prevalence, meaning the number of people that are experiencing loneliness, that first black bar, and living alone, that third black bar. We've got volumes of people that experience that at the same rate or more than, in the case of loneliness, of people who have obesity, who are physically inactive, who are adult smokers, and then even severe obesity at the very bottom. So the prevalence of loneliness and living alone is quite severe in the US adult population. If you look at the top though, if you take that into account and you really think about how this impacts people's healthcare, your healthcare, your patients, your future patients' healthcare, your current patients' healthcare, we are actually showing, and there's a lot behind this data, but just bear with me. We are actually showing that social connections, or lack thereof, even divorce, loneliness, as is reflected in that bottom graph, actually does show more mortality, meaning it could eventually kill you. I hate to say it like that, but it has much of an impact on your health as, let's see, loneliness is above, lack of activity, lack of physical activity, obesity, and air pollution. As much as we are focused on climate change, we should be focused on social connection as well. And where did we see this in the past couple of years? The pandemic kept us inside. Mental health, well-being completely was impacted negatively by that lack of social connection. And we are particularly seeing this in our children with their lack of ability, especially in the younger years, and they are actually impacted as far as their education. They're behind in their reading scores, they're behind in their math scores, and the lack of social connection. Of course, they didn't have their classes, but so don't take that for the only reason, lack of social connecting, but it's part of it. They needed to be in that environment. We as adults, we as humans need to be in that environment. And so lack of social connection, as far as a complex measure, I don't want to get into the detail of social integration. So not just having a friend, but being integrated maybe with your culture, maybe in your town, being part of something bigger than you, that has some of the highest, if you don't have it, highest risk for healthcare, higher than even smoking less than 15 cigarettes a day, or continuous smoking for patients who have congestive heart disease or congenital heart disease, either one, C or C, congestive heart disease. It has more of an impact. So take this data for what it is. We are really trying to promote, personally, Dr. Owens had to drop off. I am formerly a doc from the Veterans. Well, we are personally really trying to promote social connection when we're talking about mental health concerns in veterans more than any population. Their risk of suicide is greater, close to 20. I think we're at 17 veterans die daily in this country. And it's something that is of a significant health concern, obviously. And social connection, we recognize, is a necessary piece to address that risk. Showing you a little bit of data and giving you 2 areas that we want to prioritize for well-being above others. Let's definitely talk about mental health.
I would also say the fact that, like, the social connection part, sometimes it's the little small things in the day. Sometimes think about how I've had a long day rounding at the hospital and I could run into one of my colleagues in the hallway,
Right.
and both of us just talk about how, like, what a busy morning we had, and just connecting with her and having somebody just listening, both listening to each other and just, hey, I hear you, I see you, you know? Nothing else has changed in my day, but it really picks me up for the afternoon, you know?
Yeah.
And so those, like, or like a long day at work and I'm calling one of my friends from college on the drive home, just like, how's life? You know, like those little small things. When you think about social connections, just actually prioritizing those relationships that you have and being able to connect with people and listen and hear. And, you know, I think that it really is a pick me up outside of in your day. It really does make a difference.
Social connection, they don't need a lot, but they need a little, not as much as us extroverts, because I like talking to people and everything. That helps me at the end of the day. But yes, definitely. All right.
And there's a question in the chat as well about social connections. It's saying they're saying social connection can be a double-edged sword about bullying. The rates of bullying are growing. So it's not really just social interactions. It having the right social interactions. What do you
Oh,
think about
Mandy,
that,
thank you
Dr.
for that.
Ray?
Yeah, Mandy, thank you for that point. You're entirely right. The right social connections, the ones that are supportive and that are not only going to bring you peace, but bring you balance, as we've been talking. Very good.
And actually feed you and not take away from you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And just like what Dr. Matthews is saying, it's some people are extroverts and need a lot of social interaction, and some introverts only need a little bit, but they charge as well when they have their alone time. So it varies by person. So I'll just be talking about some tips to boost your mental health. And like Dr. Matthews is talking about, social interaction is important, and just being able to maintain those relationships with your family and friends, you're more likely to feel happy. And you want to make sure that you're exercising, even if you're able to take just a quick walk, walking the dog, just taking a walk around your block. 30 minutes is a good time to just be able to get that blood flowing, and just being able to kind of boost your mental health as well. So you want to stay positive and smile, be around people who make you laugh, just to ease what you might be going on throughout the day. As well as journaling is a great way to get your thoughts out on paper, or even to show gratitude. So a good thing I like to do too is just like writing 3 things you're grateful for, 3 things that you actually want to accomplish. And I'm a big list person, and I feel like lists help you actually feel fulfilled in what you're doing, because if you're able to physically cross out something off of your list, you're able to visualize that, and that also can positively affect your wellness and your mental health. Sunlight is a good way to get not only your vitamin D, but also it's a way to elevate your mood, as well as doing something you're good at. So there's times where you have the bad days, and then you have really good days, but on those days that aren't going as well, it's good to just try and find something you're good at. Like, let's say if you're a runner and you need to, which incorporates the exercise as well. If you're a runner, you could do that run and try and get that time that you usually are good at. And so that will be a good way to kind of help you tackle another task, come home, tackle a task that you need to work on, get the charting done. So that's a good thing to do, as well as meditate, or if a lot of us are believe in God, so prayer is a good thing, and that's something that you don't need too much time to do. And then sometimes going off the grid can help you, is just, even if it's cutting back on social media, having disconnecting for it on it, like after a certain time, or turning your alerts off on your emails after a certain time, just to be able to really physically and mentally be present with whoever you're with, or to be at home, have that time to focus on your family and to focus on your friends if you need to catch up. So that's a way to promote your feelings of self-worth. And it just social media can also be very draining, and it can increase your feelings of anxiety and depression by just consuming so much information from other people. So it's good to just know when to cut that off. But it's important, like if you feel that you've tried doing these things that if you feel like you need to seek a therapist, it's a great way to just have an unbiased, qualified person help you understand and cope with that, what you're going through, and just to kind of have that someone you could talk to. Overall, it's like very important to just make sure that you're talking about it, and depending on the situation that you may be going through, it's good to connect with someone that might be inside healthcare that could kind of understand what you're going through, or even if you need someone that doesn't understand anything you're going through, just so you could have that fresh set of eyes, a family member, friend. So that's something that you want to focus on as well, like just to help you boost that. I put here some helpful apps that sometimes it's hard to find a therapist, or to physically go somewhere to do to make time to do those things that you could do. These are mindfulness apps, as well as there's Ginger, where you're able to find a therapist. So if there's anything that you can always check these out. And if you have any other tips that you might have tried or done that you felt helped you with boosting your mental health, you can always share that as well in the chat, or let us know. We'd love to hear it.
I love it, Stephanie, for these tips. This is so critical. As as we mentioned, right, the past couple of years have been so hard, and it is so hard to find the help. That's why the apps, I personally, I'll tell my story. I personally reached out to probably 10 different psychiatry practice counseling practices in DC. None of them were taking new patients. And my job offered access to Ginger. I was like, what is this thing? I'm not going to use this app. And now I use it regularly. So I can definitely testify to the benefit there. All right, guys. Some of our own stories, and I think my internet connection is going crazy, so I'm going to defer to you two to share your stories, because I don't think I'm going to get through it. I think the wind is.
Sure. Thanks, Dr. Matthews. I can talk a little bit about what I do. So, to prioritize wellness and prevent burnout. So I work in hospital medicine. So it's taking care of really, really sick patients in the hospital. And I'm married and I have two young children as well. So I feel like between work, um, being a wife, being a daughter, being a sister, being a mom, and then me sometimes can fall to the bottom. And I felt like during the pandemic with raising two kids at home, I really was feeling like me as a person is falling to the bottom. I felt like I was my time was split between being a doctor and being a mom. And who Demetra is, I feel like was getting lost in all of that, where it's where is my identity out of those two things? And it really took a lot of first of all, recognizing that, hey, I don't feel like myself anymore. But some things I do right now to prioritize my wellness, I think somebody mentioned in the chat earlier, actually scheduling self care, me time. So with a I told you I do hospital medicine and administrative work. So in the times that I'm not at the hospital, my calendar can really fill up with meetings and tasks to do and things like that. So now I block out times in the week where this is my time that I'm going to the gym. This is my time that maybe I'm getting to going to lunch with a friend. This is my time that I have this activity, this thing to do. So there's certain times because if you're not intentional about putting it on there, the days that I don't put gym on the calendar, I don't go to the gym, you know? Um, so being intentional about blocking out time for me is one of the things that I found really helped improve my wellness. And one of the other things I would say would be coaching. And it's something that I really didn't um, know much about until a few years ago. Again, when you're feeling like work, and somebody mentioned a little bit about you start to think like, oh, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And so for me, as part of my wellness, the answer to that question of why am I doing this is really a question I ask about almost everything I do. I'm going to come back to the coaching because I went on a little sidetrack, but the why am I doing this? I ask about everything I do. So there's only a certain number of hours in the day. What are my priorities? Why am I doing this thing? So for work, that might be finding the purpose. Why do I love what I do? Whether the joy I see when somebody comes in sick and is better at the end of the day, and I see them go home and reunite with their family. Like, why did I pursue this career? Why am I going to this meeting today? Why am I involved in this project? We're getting together to discuss this thing. Why are we doing this? And just being grounded in the why of why is everything I do in my day important to me. There's not a good reason for why it's important. It probably is something that could come off of my calendar and come off of my day, out of my day. And I feel like I used to feel some of that guilt about it, that similar to what Dr. Owens mentioned earlier about, turning down things and saying no. But I think it's a lot easier to do once it's framed in the why. because if I don't have a good answer to why, then it's not so hard to say no because, I've already figured out I don't need this, this is not something that I need to do. The last thing I want to say about coaching. So I have a coach right now who's a colleague here. And so if I'm going through something with work or a situation or at work, or I don't want, where I just want to talk to somebody about it, people often think about an advisor or a mentor or a sponsor, the person who has the knowledge and who's going to get you to that next stage of where you need to be. But the coach is typically not even in your specialty, your area. It doesn't even need to be somebody in medicine, but it's going to be that person to really help you reflect and think through the situation that you're in. Some people are very good at self-reflection and thinking through situations, and having somebody to, as you're working through a situation, talk with you about it and think about your approach to a certain situation. And I feel as though that process has really brought me a lot of fulfillment in my job, being able to have a coach and it really helps you think about how you approach situations and things that you could do differently to get a different outcome that could impact your happiness and where you're at. Those were going to be my things of like what I would say for what things that I do myself to promote wellness. There was a question in the chat about, does coaching need to be one-on-one to be effective? It does not need to be one-on-one. It really depends on your comfort with the other people who are in the room and how deep you're going to get. If that makes sense.
Stephanie, why don't you go ahead and share your story?
Thanks for sharing, Dr. Gibson. So as a student, I feel like you get a burnout from just studying so much. You were just always like isolated, studying on your computer. So personally, the way I try and prioritize my wellness is I'm big with working out and just kind of just organizing my day. I need to I'm a visual person, so I need to have my list of what I want to do. I have to organize it like a schedule in a way just to be able to fit everything that I do participate in. And I feel like what Dr. Owens was saying with the Venn diagram, I felt like that was a great way to put it, because you do have some times where that overlap of your family or your friends are a lot more than like what you might see with career, that you kind of other areas of the Venn diagram are decreased and you're not able to like show have enough time for that. So I like to, when things get overwhelming, I like to kind of pull back. I'm a big airplane mode person. I know I could do that right now. I know it might change later on, but I'm a big airplane mode person that I like to, after a certain time, or just to kind of really prioritize the time that I do have. I need to be focused 100%, because sometimes I'll be doing something a little bit. I'll be like 50% here and then 50% trying to do that it creates more, I would say like more confusion or more like stress on you, because you are trying to just balance everything. So that's why I feel like just having a list and knowing that it does come in waves of how you're going to be, how the balance is going to be happening. So to be able to prevent that burnout, you just want to, I like to kind of do things that make me happy. So even if it's like for a little bit, I want to go travel real quick, or just go play with my dog, I'm able to do like different activities, or read, just something to kind of bring me back to like why, like not bring me back to like, to kind of be more motivated again, to be like, okay, I'm ready, de-stressed, I'm ready to kind of focus and tackle these tasks. So I feel like it's just kind of knowing that it's not going to be every single time that you're going to have that is going to be perfect, but knowing that, kind of being self-aware and knowing what you need to de-stress, or what you need when it's time that it's just too much, that I need to pull back a little bit and do the things I love, or to read, whatever it is. So that's what helps me a lot with it, and just having time to like see my faith, and just like talking into God, or just writing it out. I like to do that as well. So that's personally how I balance burnout. Yeah.
I love that, guys. All right, my apologies again. My internet is going crazy. And just so I can spare you my internet sharing, because that won't come through. We wanted to ask you guys, and please, again, feel free to drop it in the chat. What are your barriers to wellness now, or what do you see them being as you move, through your studies and becoming a healthcare professional? What are your barriers? We'd love to talk about them and address them, or tell you how we do, because everyone needs to address them differently. But if you have barriers, we'd love for you to share them. We'd love for you to open up. We definitely each have had our own experience with barriers. I think, again, for me, I can't even be more silly about this. Like, the sleep was me not sleeping well, taking that on personally. It was really starting to be bad, because I was starting to get headaches, the migraines, the physical side to it. I was yawning during meetings, so professionally I wasn't looking good. Like, it was just horrible. All right, we've got one example. Family commitments are the hardest to say no to. That is critical, isn't it, guys? Like, especially going through school, but then definitely, yes. Even now, they want you there. They want you everywhere. And sometimes you have to say no. I completely agree with that. That's a great one, Mandy. Thank you for that. What are some other barriers you ladies have seen? Time is usually the biggest one. Time is usually the biggest one, and saying no. And then the energy to do everything, I think, is also the hard part. Maybe that's my sleep obsession. Go ahead,
Yeah, I think time is a really, like, there's only 24 hours in the day. I think that being able to say no, family commitments are extremely hard to say no to. I do not live near family, and so and when I attend family commitments when I can, and make and arrange things, but my family knows that if it's something that they want me there for, I need to know in advance, and I need to be able to plan for it, which I feel like makes that an easier thing to plan for. It's easier to say no, because if you can plan around that. I also think another thing is, when you talk about prioritizing, um, that's sometimes a barrier for some people, because they're not sure where certain priorities go, like what is important to you. And so sometimes that needs a little bit of searching and reflection to figure out where are your priorities, and what is important to you. And then I would also say another barrier that some people have is really feeling comfortable putting yourself first. Um, you can't take care of your patients, your family, your loved ones if you're not taking care of yourself. And so that's a barrier that I feel like you sometimes see.
We do have someone that shared that they feel aphomia. A big barrier I have too is wellness, my lack of confidence and commitment.
It's hard to prioritize, I definitely went through this. It's hard to prioritize outside of your studies, outside of your work, when Exactly. You're not yet confident in your skills, right? So you think you need to give it your all. You need to be in it 100%. You need to have those nights where you don't sleep. Here I go again. You need to, not go to the gym, not have that downtime with your family or your friends, because exactly, you aren't confident in where you're going or how you're going to get there yet. I think our argument, and what I quickly realized early on, is if I don't balance now, I'll never get there. I'll never be able to earn that confidence in the first place. So I'll give you my example. In medical school, me and my roommate, this was so silly, literally carved out an hour in the afternoon, because we had morning classes, and then some afternoons we didn't have any. We carved out 1 p.m. on the East Coast to watch All My Children. It was our downtime. It was our mental downtime. We have to do this every day. We will go study. We'll extend an hour. We'll do dinner later, but 1 o'clock, no way I was going to have the energy, honestly, for a longer study session without having that mental break. I know that about myself, that I can't go hours at a time. So I love that point, but it's definitely, let's flip it. If you want that confidence, seek wellness.
And then also to that point, what about how long was your TV break?
It was like an hour. It wasn't.
Yeah, so that's what yeah, exactly. That's what I was gonna say, is the fact that like sometimes people are thinking that um sometimes you don't need long, is I guess is what I'm saying. 1 hour in the day, like I know it's extremely busy in any healthcare professional school about the vast amount that you have to know and learn, and again, but it doesn't have to be long, that amount of time that you take to unplug and unchart it. And like Dr. Matthews said, the fact that it's an investment in building your confidence and your commitment, because it's an investment in you and your wellness to get there. So it doesn't have to be long. We talked about a lot of things that can promote wellness, and which one, as you figure out which works for you and what sort of things in there really speaks to you, it doesn't have to be long in your day that you're spending doing it.
Thank you for that. All right, guys, we are hitting the 9 o'clock hour. Ladies, do you have any other final thoughts?
I also want to say, like, in regards to energy, just knowing what drains your energy and what feeds into your energy is a huge thing as well. So that's a big part of like prioritizing, will help prioritize your time. So
Completely agree. Completely. Yeah, completely. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I'm sorry for my internet connection. Blame it on the wind. There's something going on in DC. But for Tour for Diversity in Medicine and Health Professions Weekend, we thank you guys so much for joining. Definitely come out to other events, watch our YouTube channel, all that different stuff. And thanks for joining this evening. And thank you, Dr. Gibson, Stephanie. Dr. Owens had to drop off. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Have a good night, guys. Bye-bye.